There's something moving behind the scenes in Santa Clara that changes the way you see this offense. Brock Purdy is not talking about De'Zhaun Stribling like he is just some future piece sitting on the shelf. He is talking like a quarterback who has already felt the speed, the route movement, and the upside coming out of his own hand. Then we have a possible backfield market move that could be cheap, local, and dangerous if this front office acts fast. On defense, a forgotten piece is starting to lose real ground. And at the end, Mac Jones enters the kind of conversation nobody screams about, but every front office understands. Subscribe because today we are reading the hallway signs. What stands out here is not only the praise, it is who said it, where he said it, and how he said it. Brock Purdy did not have to pull De'Zhaun Stribling into this kind of conversation right now in May at the Dwight Clark Legacy Series event, while everyone is still trying to figure out the new receiver pecking order. He could have kept it safe. Rookie has talent, needs to learn. We are excited, all the usual stuff. But that is not what this sounded like. When Purdy tells Laura Britt from NBC Sports Bay Area that Stribling has a lot of raw talent, that he can already feel the way he moves, his speed, and how he runs routes on air, that might sound minor to people outside the building. For a quarterback, it is not minor at all. Quarterbacks feel trust before the numbers ever show it. They feel whether the ball can leave early. They feel whether the receiver gets to the right landmark. They feel whether there is enough burst to turn a closing window into a real play. And that is the behind-the-scenes part that matters. The 49ers did not take Stribling at number 33 just to let him sit around forever waiting for permission. They brought in Mike Evans and Christian Kirk to stabilize the room, to add experience, size, precision, and Sunday presence. But drafting Stribling tells you something else about the plan. Yes, it says future, but it also says immediate pressure. Because in Santa Clara, a high pick does not get a comfortable chair. He gets expectations. The kid had 1,693 receiving yards over his final 2 college seasons, with 6 touchdowns in each year. That shows consistency. This was not one random hot afternoon. And when Purdy brings Kyle Shanahan and Leonard Hankerson into the conversation, saying they do a great job developing receivers, you can hear the whole message. The talent is there, the structure is there, and the opportunity could be there. Now let's be honest, Shanahan's offense is not a playground for rookies. There are reads, timing, blocking details, route depth, adjustments against coverage, and discipline away from the ball. A receiver can be fast and still get lost inside that playbook. But if Stribling learns quickly, he does not have to wait until December to bother somebody. He can start as a situational weapon, earn packages, attack matchups, and force defenses to respect one more threat. And for Purdy, that is gold. The more reliable options he has, the less this offense gets trapped into one answer. Behind the scenes, the key line is simple. The quarterback is already curious. And when the quarterback starts picturing plays with a rookie, that door is no longer locked. Now we get to the kind of topic that looks small until you picture Kyle Shanahan staring at the running back depth chart and doing the cold math. Christian McCaffrey is there. Brock Purdy knows exactly what he has in him. So does every defense in the league. The issue is not the top of the room. The issue is what happens when the schedule starts collecting a toll. When one hit changes the Sunday plan. When you have to win an ugly game without asking McCaffrey to carry the whole planet on his back. That is why Najee Harris deserves a phone call if the market stays open. Not as some desperate headline, not as a cute hometown story, as a smart behind-the-scenes piece. The kind of move that does not look massive in May, but saves drives in November. Harris is 27 years old, built for physical football, and has put together a career that plenty of people underrate because he spent years in a Pittsburgh offense that did not always help its backs. And still, he topped 1,000 rushing yards in each of his first 4 seasons. Among active players, he stands alone on that list. That does not happen by accident. That speaks to volume, toughness, routine, professionalism, and the ability to produce even when the defense knows what is coming. The Achilles injury with the Chargers in Week 3 of 2025 changes the conversation. Of course it does. Any serious team is going to study his burst, his cuts, his confidence in that foot, how he responds in workouts, all of it. But if the rehab really has gone well, as the reports suggest, then the price becomes a huge part of the equation. He had been on a 1-year, $5.25 million deal in Los Angeles. Now, the expectation being discussed is somewhere around $2 million to $2.5 million. For a contender that needs real insurance behind McCaffrey, that is not luxury. That is opportunity. And there is another layer that does not show up on a spreadsheet. Harris grew up in Antioch, near the Bay Area. That kind of connection does not win games by itself, but it can matter when a player is choosing environment, role, and a chance to rebuild the story. He has already visited the Seahawks and Raiders, according to the NFL Transaction Wire. In Las Vegas, the idea would be a complementary role behind Ashton Jeanty. In San Francisco, the picture is different. Step into an offensive machine that knows how to create space, use checkdowns, screens, motion, patience, and angles. Harris does not have to be McCaffrey. Nobody is asking for that. He would need to be the reliable adult who turns 3rd and 2 into a first down, catches the short pass without drama, takes contact between the tackles, and lets Shanahan manage wear and tear without turning every absence into an emergency. That is the kind of move John Lynch needs to see before it becomes expensive. If Las Vegas does not close, if Seattle does not push forward, if the number stays friendly, the 49ers should be ready. Because contenders do not wait for the fire to figure out where the extinguisher is. Contenders build the backup plan while everyone else is still staring at the shine of the starter. While the offense gets new toys and the backfield could get real insurance, the defense shows the other side of the process. When Santa Clara decides to rebuild a room, somebody starts running out of air, and Evan Anderson's case feels like it is reaching that uncomfortable point. The 2025 defensive line left a scar. The 49ers struggled against the run, did not scare quarterbacks enough, and finished with just 20 sacks, the lowest mark in the league. For a franchise that built its identity on people knocking at the quarterback's door, that is not some hidden note in a report. That is an internal alarm. John Lynch saw it. Kyle Shanahan saw it. Chris Kosirik, you can bet, felt it every day on tape. The response came with weight. Osa Odigizua arrived in a major trade with the Cowboys. Grayson Halton came through the draft. Alfred Collins and C.J. West look ahead of Anderson in the fight for a real role. Suddenly, the space that once seemed possible for Anderson has turned into a narrow hallway with bigger names standing in line. And this is where the behind-the-scenes read gets harsh. Anderson was not just some random name floating around. In 2024, as an undrafted free agent out of Florida Atlantic, he received $280,000 guaranteed in his first contract, an unusual number for a player in that spot. Then he appeared in 12 games, made 24 tackles, had 2 quarterback hits, and added a sack. You could see a rotational piece slowly starting to grow. But 2025 changed the tone. Even with injuries, even with the defense needing help, he stayed stuck on the practice squad. He did not get the call when the room was asking for help. That kind of silence weighs more than a public quote. Sometimes the message does not come at a press conference. It comes through the absence of opportunity. Now he is on a reserve/futures deal with no guaranteed money. To survive, it is not enough to be familiar. He would have to jump past names like Sebastian Valdez and Bryson Eason, while also proving there is still a clear job for him on a line that has been rebuilt to be heavier, more explosive, and less patient with stalled promise. And I want to hear from the fan base here. Would you still save a practice squad spot for Anderson? Or is this the moment to turn the page and let Kosirik mold new blood? Because contenders cannot get attached to what almost worked. If this defense wants to be feared again, every rotational spot has to justify the helmet. And the fourth story shifts the room again, because we go from a defensive line roster fight to a question front offices like to ask quietly. What is the value of a quarterback who has already taken hits from his own career path, but still has pedigree, age, and experience worth rebuilding? Mac Jones has become that kind of name. To a lot of people, he is just the memory of a start that never fully took off in New England. But the modern NFL is full of warnings for anyone who thinks the first version of a quarterback is always the final version. Baker Mayfield had to leave the chaos, breathe, find structure, and then came back leading a playoff team. Sam Darnold spent years carrying a heavy label, then found a better path. Ryan Tannehill changed scenery and became a different story. Mitchell Trubisky shows the other side. Not every second chance turns into a revival. So the question in Santa Clara is not whether Mac Jones has already proven he is a franchise quarterback. He has not. The question is whether there is real value in letting a player with that profile spend a year behind Brock Purdy, inside a stable organization, with Kyle Shanahan designing the game, without having to save a franchise every Monday morning. And to me, that makes a ton of sense. Not because there is any debate about the starter. Brock Purdy is the guy. Period. This is another layer of intelligence. The 49ers know a good backup quarterback is not decoration. In a league where one injury can change a season in 3 seconds, having someone with NFL starts, defensive recognition, and first-round background matters. And if that player still believes he can become a starter somewhere else, even better. Healthy internal competition can come from that too. The numbers before age 28 put Jones in the same statistical hallway as quarterbacks who had life after their first failure. High completion percentage, lower sack rate than some of those examples, similar overall efficiency. That does not automatically turn him into Mayfield or Darnold, but it explains why San Francisco should not give him away cheaply just because the public debate is impatient. The behind-the-scenes detail is time. Mayfield, Darnold, and Tannehill benefited from some kind of reset before the next opening came. Trubisky was thrown back into a major role too quickly, and it never stabilized. If Jones spends this season watching Purdy, absorbing Shanahan, and rebuilding confidence without the urgency of carrying everything, maybe he enters 2027 with a different market. For the 49ers, this is simple. While he is here, he is protection. When the right time comes, he could be value. And smart contenders know the difference between keeping depth and developing an asset. At the end of the day, this leaves one clear feeling. The 49ers are working the edges before the edges become problems. Stribling has already caught the quarterback's attention. Najee Harris would be a bet on price, fit, and timing. Evan Anderson shows this new defensive line is not waiting around for anybody. Mac Jones reminds you that even the backup can become a strategic asset when the franchise is thinking 2 moves ahead. That is contender business behind the scenes. Nothing is small when January is sitting on the horizon. If you want every signal out of Santa Clara with real heat and no soft talk, subscribe, hit the like button, and stay with us.